Do soulmates exist? The ups and downs of looking for the one. Jason, you first met Tammy at a kebab shop. Was it love at first sight?
It was lust at first sight.
Tammy, did you feel the same way?
I had a different set of ticker boxes for what I was visually attracted to. So it definitely wasn't love at first sight.
You realised he wasn't your type. What was your type?
Well, my ideal sort of visual person was I liked really tall, skinny, lanky men with long blonde hair. I was into heavy metal, so I liked your Axl Rose and your Sebastian Bach and people like that. So that was what I was drawn to.
And Jason wasn't quite that fit.
Complete opposite.
Complete opposite, actually, yeah.
Jason, why were you attracted to Tammy?
She just had a great look. Long black hair, nice body, real rock and roll sort of look. She was very easy to talk to, very open and friendly.
And during this time, your mum showed this photo to a psychic.
Yeah.
What did the psychic say about it?
That was really interesting. She turned around and said, oh, they're a great couple. And Mum's like, oh, no, they're not together, they're just flatmates. And the psychic's like, no, their auras are entwined and they're together, they just don't know it yet.
When you heard that, what did you think?
I was kind of a bit blown away. I was like, really? Like, because at the time we weren't in a relationship, like in a romantic relationship.
Tammy, you were both living in Perth. What was your relationship with Jason back then?
Yeah, so we were friends for a very long time and then we became friends with benefits.
Friends with benefits as in kind of sex every now and then?
There was a physical side to it, yeah.
Yep.
So at that point in time, the person I was living with had moved out and I needed someone to move in and his flatmate was moving out, so he needed somewhere to live as well. So I said, why don't you just move in with me? So he actually started living with me.
Tammy, with that flatmate scenario, the friends with benefits, at that stage, did you want anything to move beyond that?
No, I was quite comfortable with him as friends and I think the friendship I had with him was quite a different level to the friendship I had with other men. So I knew he was a very special person and I think I realised that to take it to another level, it would have been, I just had this feeling in my heart that if we got together, it would have been, that's it. And I didn't feel like I was ready to just stop being single at that point.
Jason, were you happy with this living arrangement?
Not really. I wanted more.
Yeah.
Yeah, from pretty early on, I wanted more. But Tammy had always been upfront and honest with where she was at, so I knew where I stood. I was never led on or anything like that.
Jason, you decided to go interstate for New Year's Eve. Tammy, you took Jason to the airport when he was heading to Melbourne.
I did.
What happened there?
You know, because we were living together, I said, oh, I'll drive you to the airport. We're pretty close to the airport. And even before then, I took him on a few shopping expeditions. His wardrobe was quite antiquated when I met him. And I said, you know, if you're going to go to Melbourne, I'm going to dress you up and you're going to pick up chicks. I'll get you some real jazzy new clothes. So I got him all, you know, kitted out and, you know, packed his bag and took him to the airport. And it was really weird because I thought, oh, I'm going to watch the plane fly away. And so I went up to the window and I was watching the plane sort of, and it started to move across the tarmac and I just burst into tears and I was like, what the hell's going on? Like, wow. That's not normal. People shouldn't cry when they're just seeing a flatmate off, you know. And I just went, okay, so something's going on here. And when I went back to work, at the time I was working in a dress shop, my boss said to me, you know, a few days in, what is wrong with you? You're all out of sorts. You're not your usual self. And I'm like, oh, I don't know what's going on. And she's like, this has started when Jason left. Oh. Are you missing him? And I went, oh, I think so. And I started crying again.
You then found out that Jason had met another woman in Melbourne.
Yes.
What was your reaction to that?
He sent me an SMS saying, your outfits you bought me and all this stuff you've prepared me for has worked. I have been picked up by this chick. And he was expecting me to be excited for him because that was sort of what I'd prepped him for. And when it actually happened, I felt sick. I was just, my stomach just did a great big turn and I went, okay, this is real. And that's when I realised, okay, you're either going to have to totally let him go and do his own thing, or if what you suspect is true, that you do love him and want to be with him, you have to tell him.
Wow.
This is it. So that was the deciding factor.
Darren, you dated your soulmate Jo when you were both 14.
Correct, yes.
At that age, how did you know she was the one?
I knew Jo was the one when she sat on my knee at a blue light disco and said she loved me around about that time, and that my heart was safe. I felt my heart was safe immediately with Jo.
So it was a feeling.
Absolutely, knew it straight away. I told her dad when we were 14, he was our social studies teacher, and I told him, I'm going to marry your daughter one day. He said, get out of my class. So I was banished and stood outside for 20 minutes.
How would you define a soulmate?
Soulmate's the other half of you, the person that doesn't necessarily complete you, because I don't makes it sort of sound like you're broken. It's not that. It's more a case of that person that allows you to shine and be your best self, for you to completely be comfortable with. It's just the connection. You feel it.
Do you believe you and Jo were destined to meet?
Absolutely.
In what way?
When we were 6 years old, we were in primary school together in the same class, and we were friends. This is in a town called Newman. We were in the same year one class together, and I was at her 6th birthday party, so we were friends back then. It goes even further back. We were born in the same hospital on the same day.
Wow.
8 hours apart in Manjimup, so the other end of the state.
Your parents kind of moved around. Did you end up reconnecting?
Our parents moved around, so from Manjimup, obviously, being born there, up to Newman, mining town, a big hub back in the mid-late 70s and 80s. So her dad was a teacher, my dad was in mining, so we ended up in Newman, obviously around that time, 6, 7 years old. So connected there. Families moved around as they tended to do back then as well, same sort of thing with mining industries and education. So we ended up in Australind together in high school, and I sat behind her and she was going out with another fella, but I had my eye on her straight away without even realising who she was. And I said something really embarrassing and cringeworthy to her to try and break the ice. I wanted to be funny, but not too crass or crude. So I said, what? And because she sort of blew me off. And I called her a grumpy old football boot, which was really lame. But it worked, and we started chatting, and I think a few days later she broke it off with that poor unfortunate fella and started going out with me at age 14, and we were, we were on.
Jerry, you're a relationship researcher. How does popular culture usually define a soulmate?
It comes in all kinds of varieties, if you think about it. It's part of theatre and famous plays. It's written, you know, in lyrics to songs, poems, etc. Oftentimes it is around there being this kind of mystical sense that there is that particular someone that is out there for us, and that when the planets align, we will find that particular one. Some talk about a soulmate as something a bit more general that speaks to some of the things that have been spoken about today, which is that it's a person who just tends to understand you as a being. It's as if you can understand each other's souls. Some would even go as far as to say you share the one soul. But certainly in terms of popular culture, these are the kinds of messages that are often kind of outlined when it comes to soulmates.
In your experience, do soulmates exist?
A lot of people would endorse the view that there is such a thing as a soulmate. Whether there is a particular the one, that's nothing that any of us have been able to prove, and I don't know if we will be able to prove, because if you think about it, you would need to date every possible suitor on the planet and then turn around and say, you know what, number 336, that was the one, and I need to find them again. What we understand is that when we love people deeply, then the idea of losing them, the idea of not having us in our lives, does fill us with a deep sense of grief and anticipated loss, where the pain is too great to let them go. And so we work particularly hard to maintain those relationships.
Darren, in high school, you reconnected with Jo and you started dating. You still have Jo's diary from that time.
I do have her journal, yes.
What was she writing about back then?
She was writing about the times that we would spend together. Dear diary, I spoke to Darren on the phone today for 3 hours. It was so good. Till brother came in the room and started being annoying, that sort of stuff. So,
How long were you together for?
at that stage, around about 6 months before she says I broke up with her, I say she broke up with me. We always argued about that.
So you kind of became friends in that time?
I went from I went from being the boyfriend to king of the friend zone
Yeah.
for a little while after that. Yeah.
After high school, where did that friendship go?
So after high school, we went our separate ways, as you do. I got a letter. I was living in Kalgoorlie in WA. Got a letter in the mail that had been forwarded on from my grandfather in Warpole. So basically, a letter from Joe, and all it said was, "Hi Darren, it's Joe. Hope you remember me. Hope you're doing well. I had a dream about you. Wondered where you are and what you're doing. I'm not sure if you'll ever get this." And she sent it off to the only name that matched mine in the phone book, which happened to be my grandfather in Warpole. He forwarded it on to me in Kalgoorlie, and I got the letter and my heart leapt straight away. I kind of knew straight off, okay, here we go. And I could still remember her parents' phone number from when we were 14. So I rang the phone number just on the off chance they might still live there. And sure enough, her mum answered. Okay, that was great, really positive. And I said, "It's Darren. I wondered if I can get hold of Joe or get a number for Joe." And she said, "She's actually here. She's popped over for a coffee."
Wow.
So we have a chat on the phone and realised we definitely want to see where this goes, and or if there is anything there. Like I knew there was. Joe took a little bit longer to come around at that point, but obviously she'd had the dream, so she must have had some inkling. We started sending letters to and from her in Bunbury, me in Kalgoorlie, backwards and forwards, most of which I've still got. The letters where it's, "I can't wait to see you. I really want to see you. I said I'm coming to Bunbury on the 1st of October 97 for a friend's wedding. I will make a point of coming and seeing you and we'll see what happens." So I went to the friend's wedding, excused myself once the dancing had started, went and met up with Joe. We went for a walk and shared one kiss, one decent, passionate kiss, and I had fireworks.
Wow.
I just had it all confirmed. I knew this was it.
She was the one.
Yep, she was the one.
Helen, you saw Virginia at a Sydney lesbian club in 1988. What happened when you clocked each other?
It was almost like the waters parted, literally. I walked over and I said, "G'day." I said, "My name's Helen." And with that, she put her hand around my waist and put me on a knee. She was there at the time with a partner who I didn't know she was breaking up with, and I was terrified. I wanted to live, and being a butch, I said, "Your partner's in the next room. I wish to live tonight, to see the night through." And so she grabbed me even tighter, and I thought, oh dear. I just knew that this was going to go a place. It was there, and I knew that life would never be the same again.
Virginia, what was going through your mind when Helen approached you?
I was having a bit of a chuckle, really, because the woman that Helen worked with actually lived in my household, and she always talked about Helen as the butch, and I had this kind of vision of someone who was probably about, 5'11", and I'm 5'2", and so when I saw her, I thought, good grief, she's nothing like that. When she sat on my knee, there was just this strong connection, and I think that's what started our journey in getting together.
Did your romantic relationship begin that night?
No, not really, because we had a lot of things to talk about, and I think that's probably why I feel that we are soulmates, because we talked about relationships. We talked about all of the things that had gone well, all of the things that hadn't gone so well for both of us, and what we didn't want to repeat. And so, we spent a lot of time talking to each other over the next sort of months before we basically got together. But I knew that this was worth pursuing, and I wasn't going to let go.
Helen, you and Virginia have been together now for more than 30 years. What is it about your relationship that makes it a soulmate relationship?
Soulmate for me is someone who understands me, accepts me for who I am, warts and all, and that means butch and all, because being butch has many liabilities attached to it, and it always has had. The other part is that I'm not cut crystal. I'm far from it. And I was very, very tough on the outside, and that was about survival. And Virginia, bit by bit, has broken that down.
Angie, several years ago you felt a strong connection with a man at work. We're going to call him Ron. What happened?
I just saw him at work one day, and I just had this like overwhelming feeling come over me, and I spent the whole weekend thinking about him, which actually kind of scared me. And I ended up like going home, took the day off sick, went home, but I knew I couldn't avoid him forever. Actually, we became fast friends, found out we had a lot in common, but it was intense because like some days him and I were like super, super close, and you know, and then another day he would like act like he didn't know who I was, you know what I mean? So it was just really confusing dynamic. But yeah, there was definitely an attraction there. And I felt that there was an attraction on his side of things too.
Jerry, we often talk about being struck by lightning or that it was like fireworks when we see someone. Is there something happening in our brains?
Indeed there is. There are particular regions of the brain that are designed to pick up when rewarding things are going on for us, such as being attracted to a particular someone that we fancy. And those particular brain regions light up, sending all kinds of neurochemicals that communicate to us that this is something that may well be good for us and that we should pursue it. And then what happens is we engage in a series of what we call approach behaviours. That is, we approach whatever we find engaging, interesting, positive, and that kind of facilitates moving things along from just gazes across a room to more things that follow.
Why does this chemical hit happen with some people and not others?
Some people have different thresholds around what it takes for those brain regions to light up and the extent to which they're able to engage in those behaviours. Some of it might be genetic.
Angie, during your friendship with Ron, you found an online community that was talking about twin flames. What's a twin flame?
A twin flame is the other half of you, basically. It's you in another body. And it's your best friend, your ultimate lover, your partner in life. A soulmate can be anyone, but a twin flame is only a romantic partner. It's your only partner that's created for you and that you're meant to be with.
You felt that Ron was your twin flame. Did you and Ron eventually have a romantic relationship?
Yeah, we went to his family cottage to spend the day together. And as the evening progressed, it did take a romantic turn. We kind of got out of the friend zone. And it was not at all what I imagined. It was awkward. I really wanted to, explain myself. I really wanted to talk it through. But yeah, for the next month, he wouldn't give me that opportunity to speak. So about a month after, he finally reached out and sent me a message telling me that as much as, he adored me, didn't want me in his life anymore, in any capacity.
Despite this, you were still compelled to pursue Ron. Why did you do that?
Because of what I was being taught in the group, that you can't ruin things with your twin flame, that there's no such thing as separation.
Tammy, you initially saw your flatmate Jason as a good friend with benefits. When you realised you loved him and might lose him, what did you do?
So it was actually around New Year's when he went away. So I chose midnight at New Year's to send him an SMS. I know that sounds a bit chicken, but I thought that's how I wanted to do it. And I sent him an SMS just saying, I love you.
Wow.
And he sent one back saying, yeah, I love you too. And so I was like, okay, he doesn't get it. So I sent another one saying, no, I really love you. And really was in capital letters. And then I didn't get a reply for a little while. And I was like, oh no, maybe I've assessed this totally wrong. But then I got this SMS back that was like a full page of I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. So I was like, okay, he took some time typing that.
Jason, do you remember where you were when you got that message and sort of what did you make of it initially?
Yeah, we were at the bar already and having a few drinks, listening to music. And yeah, like she said, it came up, I love you. And I was like, oh, that's nice. Yeah, I love you too. Just felt it was the friendship sort of thing. And then when she was like, no, I really love you, I was like, well, hang on, what? And I was just, oh, wow. And yeah, that's when I typed that big long message and I told my man, I'm like, oh my God, Tammy just said she loved me. And they were all taking the piss out of me because the rest of the night I was just texting on my phone all night to Tammy instead of sort of running around, jumping and dancing. And they're like, get off your phone.
Tammy, you'd texted that because you had heard that Jason had met someone else. Jason, did you end up hanging out with that other woman?
No.
Yeah.
No, that was off the table straight away.
And did you see each other
Not
straight
for
away?
about 2 weeks or 3. No, it was longer than that. It was about 4 weeks.
It was about 4 weeks because he had gone to Melbourne for 2 weeks, but I had already booked a holiday to Exmouth, which is in the north of Western Australia. And even though I love Exmouth, it's my favourite place to be, it was the longest holiday I've ever had.
Jason, how did it feel when you saw Tammy again?
When we saw each other, her face lit up and she sort of ran towards me and, yeah, we embraced and I was like, oh, wow, this is real. This is happening.
What did that first hug feel like?
Oh, it was amazing. Yeah, it was just pure joy.
Tammy, you and Jason have now been married for over 10 years. Here's a photo of your wedding day. Do you believe you're soulmates?
Oh, I definitely believe that we have a really next level relationship. I've never really called us soulmates, only because I'm not religious. I don't have any belief in souls. So I've never used the term soulmate, but I do understand what it is behind that label that people use, and I do think that's us for sure.
So Jason the psychic was right.
Apparently so.
Darren, when you were 14, you told Jo's dad that you would marry her one day.
Yes, I did.
Did you?
I did marry Jo, yes. And her mum also, funnily enough, after we got married, said that when the dad had gone home and recounted that conversation, she said, yes, he will be our son-in-law one day. So Jo's mum knew it as well. So we got married. We were married for 23 years. Got married on the 1st of October 98, a year to the day from that kiss with the fireworks. And that was by accident, that was coincidence. It wasn't even planned.
And you had a big family as well.
We have 5 children and 2 grandchildren, another one on the way. They range from 13 up to 28. And one lives in the UK, one lives around the corner, one lives in Perth, and 2 still live at home with me.
Angie, you were rejected by a man you believed was your soulmate. At the time, you were following the advice of an online group called the Twin Flames Universe. Did you turn to them for support?
When I had got this message from Ron saying goodbye, I didn't really take it seriously because I really believed that if I did the inner work, I would just change it around because that's what we were led to believe.
The group leader, Jeff, ran relationship classes. Did he advise you on how you might be able to restore your relationship with Ron?
He basically told me like I had to start taking bolder steps. That night that we were at the cottage, Ron had left a drill in my car. So Jeff had told me to go to his house and give him back his drill and tell him how I felt. They said, oh, you know, there's going to be bullshit. He's going to try and say things, but basically ignore is what they told him. Ignore what he's saying.
Angie, despite following their advice, Ron insisted you stop contacting him. You then found out he was getting married. How did you react to that news?
I was extremely overwhelmed because it seemed like, okay, things are getting really bad really, really fast. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like I'm doing all this inner work. I'm buying all these products. I'm going to all the classes. I'm doing everything, and everything is getting worse. He's not moving closer to me. He's moving further away from me. So I was very hard on myself. So what I thought I would do was, okay, I'm just going to reach out and I'm just going to tell Ron exactly how I feel and tell him about everything. So that's what I did. And he responded right away, basically telling me, like, you have no idea how crazy all of this sounds. You have a sick obsession with me, and I think you need help. Don't contact me again. And then he proceeded to block me on all social media. And so I'm very embarrassed about this, but I was so freaked out about the engagement that I made like a fake profile on Facebook, and I contacted him through that. And he came back to me and he was mad as hell. And then he threatened me that he would file like a restraining order if I contacted him again.
On the wedding day, you drove out to their venue and you sat outside in your car. Why?
I couldn't believe that it was real. I couldn't believe that it really happened. And of course I was like, what did I do wrong? How did this happen? I just couldn't believe that it happened. And I had to see for myself that it was real. I could hear the music and the cheers, and I could see like the lights flashing and stuff like that. And I just couldn't believe that it was real.
Would you have done any of those things if you weren't in that group?
This was not something that I would have ever done on my own, going to somebody's house, repeatedly, trying to communicate with them, obsessive behavior is not at all my personality or the type of person that I am. It was very uncomfortable to do it. I would not want it done to me, and I certainly do not advocate for anybody to do it, no matter what. Based on my opinion, on my experience, this group very much is a cult.
Ros, you got engaged to a man you met while you were working on a yacht in France. What was your relationship like?
In the beginning, we kept it quiet from the crew because it's like, well, the deckhand, dating the captain. It's like, and we didn't know how it was going to go because if it went sour, then it would affect everything. But when we officially started dating and we told the crew, the relationship was passionate. He was enthusiastic about things. He liked doing stuff, and he enjoyed food and nature and getting out and about, and we had little nicknames, and he was just so affectionate and loving, and I loved that, and I loved being adored, and I felt I gave him the same support and love, and it was just a really beautiful connection of what we had.
How serious did your relationship get?
So after the 2-year mark, I thought, yep, he's the one. And then Mum said to me, have you had a chat about kids? Work out whether you want kids or not. I'm like, yeah, I want kids. And he did a vasectomy, so we couldn't have kids. But when we looked into other ways you could still have kids, I was amazed. There is ways of... So we were going to go down the IVF route, went through the clinic, and we talked about what was next. And so he had a procedure to go down the IVF path, and we were going to have a family, have kids. And I really thought, great, he wants the same thing. This is the one. This is my soulmate. This is everything. And I had this belief that he was the one, that I overlooked little things.
Why did you think he was your soulmate?
He matched my energy levels. He matched my enthusiasm for life. He wanted things that I wanted. I felt there was just this deep connection that we were just meant to be. It was just unexplainable.
What did your family and friends think of your relationship?
They thought he was a bit controlling, a bit manipulative. In the beginning, there was things that I sort of ignored and didn't think of them as red flags, but now I think of back now, and there were some red flags.
Why do you think they thought he was controlling?
Because everything was decided by him. Everything was where we lived, what he chose. I didn't really have a space to myself. And the fact that he knew I wanted kids in the 2 years, but why did it take 2 years for him to go, you might leave. I want kids suddenly. So they were a bit concerned.
You and your fiancé at the time travelled to Perth to spend some time with your family. What happened on that trip?
So it was with my parents. We were in the car and we were driving to the accommodation place, and he got upset because I had to stop along the way because Mum got hungry. So we stopped to make sure she had some food, time difference from Melbourne to Perth. And he's like, well, you should have come straight to me. I'm not there, I'm at my brother's place. And I was like, what? I'm looking after my parents. What? And then I was just, what's going on here?
So there was a huge fight. How did your dad react to that?
My mother and ex-fiancé, they had a massive fight, and she was screaming, you don't respect me, and he was saying, you should respect me, and massive fight. And anyway, he threatened to fly back to France that night. Mum was upset besides herself, and I sat down with Dad in the Botanic Park, and Dad said to me, he said, you can marry him, but we're not going to come to the wedding.
What was it like to hear that for you?
When it came from Dad, it just broke my heart. I mean, this is meant to be my soulmate, the person I'm going to marry, to be with the rest of my life, and you can't even come to the wedding? I didn't understand. I overlooked his behaviour towards my parents because I thought he was the person I was meant to spend the rest of my life with, have kids, have this life in France. But when he was out of his surroundings and in things he couldn't control, he became this completely different person.
Did you still want to marry him?
I did. I really thought we could make it work, but then I was worried about how it would fracture my relationship with my mum and my dad. It would have patched up eventually, but what I was concerned about, if he was willing to fly back to France because he had one fight, what's the rest of the life going to be like? So we did stay together a few months after December, and then we had a chat and worked out why it couldn't work out. And from that chat, either is it narrative in my head or what did we discuss? But I remember it was March and we were both at the airport crying our eyes out, and it was just, it's time to say goodbye.
Jerry, why might some of us stay in a relationship or pursue a relationship when there are some red flags?
There's a complicated answer to that. The first is that it has a lot to do with our own kind of relationship histories. And we're not just talking about the relationships that we've had with our parents and other close family members. With the kind of experiences that we've had throughout our adult years with other relationship partners and the like. Some of it has to do with core beliefs we have around, you know, what destiny means and whether there is the one for us. And if we think it's the one, then how hard should we pursue it, even if there are red flags?
Sarah, you're still looking for your soulmate. You've made a vision board of the kind of person you would love to meet. What's a vision board? Take us through yours.
It began with me kind of reflecting on what attracts me to a partner in the first place and what have I fallen in love with in the past, like what are the qualities of the person. And then I kind of put it together, and that sort of is now like a guide to what I would like my future relationship with my soulmate or the one to be like.
What were some of the big ticket items on that board?
So you can see in the bottom sort of middle section, I've got a bit of a focus on like sustainability and the environment because that's quite important to me. On the left-hand side, we've got like health, someone that's doing exercise, you know, being physically active. It's also one of my core values. And like connection.
This is so important to you. You actually take your vision board with you when you travel. You've got it with you tonight.
Yes.
Why do you take it with you, Sarah?
I guess because like I'm quite a people person, so I'm regularly talking to people and making connections, and you know, sometimes I might find a nice guy, and I guess I don't want to be distracted by like the good-looking guy that is not in line with my values or my life goals. So
it's like a reminder in your pocket of what you're aiming for. Have you ever felt like you've had a soulmate connection before?
Yeah, and I think because I know what that feels like, that's why I'm still looking for that similar feeling.
Do you mind sharing who that connection was with?
Yeah, sure. So I guess my high school sweetheart, we also went to the same uni together. We just had so many things in common, and we laughed a lot together, and I learnt a lot with him. He was very supportive. We just had so much fun together, and the only reason I think that it didn't work out was because we had different values, so different idea in terms of religion, of religious beliefs. And so, yeah, I guess that's why I'm sort of like trying to keep my eye on like my vision and not get distracted by people that might have different values or life goals.
Do you have any non-negotiable requirements for a partner?
Non-smoker?
Yep.
And I think someone with a growth mindset, it's important.
Do you ever think you have high standards?
My mother would say I'm very fussy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in a way my standards are high, but it's not like the person has to look a certain way. It's more about like their personality or their substance. Like I just would feel if I could find someone that sort of like a match for my vision board, and it doesn't have to be exactly the same as my vision board, that I would feel more attracted to them, in love with them. I would bond more deeply with them than someone that perhaps was not so clearly defined.
Yeah. Jerry, high standards can often be seen as being picky. Is that a fair judgment?
I think it depends on how specific those standards are. But what I would say is, having high standards is one thing. I think if those standards are unrealistically high, the danger is that it's unlikely that anyone is going to meet those standards. So then everyone is going to fall short. However, that's not to say that we shouldn't have standards and there shouldn't be things that we find important. But what we do know is that some ability to be flexible, to be able to adjust on those standards and to see people for who it is that they are, and to kind of say, well, actually, they do actually meet really important criteria for me. Maybe not to the degree that I want, but I'm still okay with that because there's some latitude and I'm not perfect either. Then that goes a long way to being able to help us to find that particular someone for us.
Sarah, you've been actively looking for a life partner for about 2 years. What does that involve?
A lot of dating.
How many dates, say, a week?
Probably around 2 or 3, yeah. And it's not just like physically getting out and meeting people, but it's like trying to find people on apps, which takes up a lot of time as well. And I also am quite social, so I do a lot of sporting activities or going to karaoke, like just really trying to get out to meet people who are also out there living life, yeah.
How has this kind of impacted your life?
Well, it's had quite a significant impact on my life, actually. So, I mean, I used to work in healthcare, so I had like your regular 9-to-5 job. And when I started thinking more about like how I would like to find someone, my life kind of took a bit of a change. And I went down this pathway of then bringing singles together because I thought, that's a great way to meet people. Like when I used to travel, I would meet a lot of people just by doing fun activities.
You're 39 now.
Yes.
Why is it so important for you to find your soulmate at this point in time? Like, what's at stake?
Biological clock, so the ovaries aren't going to be making eggs forever. It has been a goal of mine or a dream to have a family. So I started thinking more serious about this, about 2 years or so ago. And, at the end of the day, if I don't find someone to make a family with, then I guess, there are other options. But, yeah, that would be my dream, to have a family, as you could see on my vision board.
Parul, you're a matchmaker for the Indian-Australian community.
Yes.
Many of our couples here tonight have talked about love at first sight or that feeling. What do you think of that idea?
If it works for some, it works, and it doesn't work for everybody. I think people think logically. They evaluate their options and then they fall in love. So it's different strategies for different people at different places, yeah.
You arrange marriages for your clients.
Yes, I do.
Can you find your soulmate this way?
You can. I mean, we, as an Indian background, we have grown up in the system where we take help of somebody else to help us out to find our soulmate. I took my parents' help. They fixed me. I'm married from 30 years. And I've seen a lot of people, getting married through somebody's help. This is something I started as a absolutely community, kind of a help. And I'm loving it. And, more people can, be benefited.
How do you manage your clients' expectations when it comes to their perfect partner? You say, look, 70, 80% is fine to go out for a coffee. How do they react to that?
Most of the time, I have this chat before they come to me, saying this is how I work. So generally, our values line up. They come with a little bit more of an open mind. Most of the time, they're okay to take my advice on board, and sometimes they are not, and that's perfectly fine. I mean, we don't force relationship upon anybody. When they are a little bit more experimental, they'll, take it on board.
Sarah, do you think 70 or 80% would be okay for you?
For sure.
74?
That sounds pretty good, actually.
Joe was absolutely my other half. I felt safe with Joe, felt like Joe was home. I absolutely think the universe played a hand in Joe and I being together. The fact that we were brought together at different times, pivotal times as well. I mean, 6 and 14 and 18 are relatively pivotal times. And Joe and I shared all those milestones together. That's all of us. That's a very pregnant Joe. She hated that photo. I loved her when she was pregnant. I loved her big round belly. It's beautiful. Joe was full of love. Her family was her biggest joy and her biggest source of pride and enjoyment. Joe loved movies. Joe loved music. Joe danced really badly. I loved everything about Joe. I love Joe's skin, the feel of her hands, her arms, this part of her neck, her back, her smile, her eyes, her laugh. She was everything. She always was. Joe made me a better man, absolutely. I sit here now relatively comfortable with who I am and give Joe full credit for that, for making me more compassionate, more empathetic, more understanding, more patient with the kids and with everything else around me. I will be forever a better man for having loved Joe and Joe having loved me.
Darren, you'd been married to your childhood sweetheart, Joe, for over 20 years. Would you mind telling us what happened in late 2021?
Joe was feeling a bit off. So after much cajoling, we finally got her to go to the hospital after we rang the Health Direct service and they said, yeah, you better get to the hospital. So we did. And then she spent the next couple of weeks in hospital in Bunbury and in Perth. Got a diagnosis with an organ issue, which then progressed to terminal status in January. Then from there, Joe passed away at home with us, April 29th.
Jo spent her last months in and out of palliative care.
Yep.
How did your relationship change over that time?
We spent almost every second together, which I'm grateful for. My role shifted from the lover, husband type relationship to protector of dignity and provider of care and compassion. Just making sure that everything was done for Jo and that she was as comfortable as she could be.
What were your last days with Jo like?
Once they decided that they weren't able to offer any more support, we requested that Jo come home. So Jo came home and spent the last 2 days with us, myself and the 5 kids and her mum. We all slept. We had a bed set up for her in the lounge, and we all slept on the couch around her for the last 2 nights. That photo that you're seeing is the last photo ever taken, Jo and I.
Holding each other's hands.
Holding each other's hand. We're always very physical, very affectionate, always. So she slipped away on the Friday morning, the 29th of April, surrounded by her kids and her mum and me at home.
What is life like without your Jo?
It's colder. It's relatively empty despite the best intentions of the kids. The kids are great. The kids support each other and me really well. But as you can imagine, it leaves a pretty big hole.
Helen, you had a serious health scare in 2016. What happened?
Virginia and I had set out to have this trip of a lifetime to go to Fiji. And so the first day we were there, I had this terrible, terrible chest pain. And I thought, I have to go to hospital, I have to go now. And she did. She got a cab, took me to hospital, they did some tests. The doctor at the time I had said that he would send me back to Australia. I had to wait 14 days before I could get on a flight. I got home. I went straight to the hospital in Albury and they gave me an angiogram. The doctor came out and said, we're flying you to Melbourne tonight. I had 9 blockages. I ended up with 5 bypasses in one hit and she'd sit in ICU and read to me. I only knew that after the fact. And she's often said to me that somehow or other she knew that I could hear her.
Virginia, what was this period like for you?
Well, I had a lot of time to think about life without Helen, and I'm a very optimistic person. I never believed that she would go. You know, the reason we'd gone to Fiji was because I was getting over having cancer myself and having treatment. I felt like if it wasn't to be that she survived, then I had no regrets. We'd had wonderful time together. I would be very devastated that I didn't have her in my life, but it wouldn't be something that I couldn't actually cope with. And of course, we've always, I guess, been able to talk about things. So sitting next to her and reading to her and talking to her about things was really what we do on a daily basis. And so it was an extension of that. And I suppose I wanted to be able to have a life continuing with Helen, regardless of what our combined health status was going to look like.
Helen, your doctors said you shouldn't be alive. What pulled you through?
The love and the belief and the sheer determination of Virginia.
Virginia, would you describe Helen as your soulmate?
Absolutely. I think we've navigated all manner of things over time, and I believe that because we spent those months together initially in thinking about how, you know, what we wanted to bring to the relationship and what we didn't want to bring with us, I think that helped us at times when things were really difficult.
Sarah, how will you know when you've found your soulmate?
I think it'll be a feeling of deep connection and happiness, and I know that my life becomes more vibrant, and I'll just want to be around that person and share stories with that person, and it'll be someone to share moments with rather than just doing everything on my own.
Yeah. Ros, since breaking up with your fiancé, have you felt a similar kind of soulmate connection?
No, I've dated various people wanting different things, and as the years have gone by, I wanted different things and hasn't quite worked out, but soulmate's still out there. One of the many. I don't think there's just one.
Jason, you and Tammy recently renewed your vows after 10 years of marriage.
Yep.
Has your relationship changed with time?
It's definitely grown, and we've grown as people as well, with a lot of things that, you know, past ideals we had and that have changed, and I think we've both grown as individuals, but also together. I think our relationship's probably stronger than ever. You know, we've had some tough times, but nothing major. There's never been any point where I thought, oh, this is not going to work. But yeah, I think we're better than ever.
Tammy, how does it feel to have found your soulmate?
It's quite satisfying in that I did go through stages earlier in my life where I was looking for a soulmate, and I think, or, you know, looking for a life partner. I wanted to get married, I wanted to have kids and things like that back in my 20s. And it's exhausting and it's time consuming, and it's your whole life. It becomes your whole life. And I think when I got to the stage where I did meet him, I had actually decided that I didn't want to have kids and I didn't want to get married. So I was enjoying being single. I was enjoying being myself. So I think I was in a completely different mindset. And that's probably what allowed us to come together, I think, because at that stage I wasn't searching. So to actually find this really good connection and somebody who always, without even trying, encourages me to be the best version of myself I can possibly be, it's quite liberating to be with someone on that level.
Have you ever wondered what your life would be like had you not sent that text at midnight or close to midnight on New Year's Eve?
I think we would have ended up together anyway. I think it was always going to be that grand finale. But I was probably delaying it as much as I could because I was enjoying being an independent me. But it was heading that way. We were just so well connected and had so much fun together and really brought out the best in each other that there was just no way it wasn't going to happen.
Darren, it hasn't been long since your soulmate Joe passed away. Do you think you'd be open to another relationship one day?
Joe and I had those conversations, as you'd expect, knowing what's coming. And yeah, at some point down the track, when the time is right, I would like to think that there could be happiness again and love again. But I told Joe on the last day that I found her in this life and I'll find her in the next one.
You and Joe were born on the same day, in the same hospital, and you kept coming in and out of each other's lives. Is that bond still there?
Absolutely. She's still very much part of me. Always will be.
Darren, thank you so much. Thank you to you all for being here tonight. That's all we have time for. Thank you to you too for joining us. See you next week.